Thank you all for joining us in this In the Art of Living series. Welcome, everyone. And this In the Art of Living series is hosted by PureEsperanza. PureEsperanza is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing forth consciousness while educating body, mind, and soul in the art of well-being. In this webinar's topic, which is Winning Ways for Living, we did 3 parts over the course of summer, and we are just so honored that our co-host Krueger has been with us and sharing his wisdom from many of his practices, specifically some that we're going to be speaking about tonight. And today is the 3rd part in this series, so we'll be wrapping it up this evening, which was like a little mini series within the In the Art of Living series. Krueger, in case you haven't seen the other 2, and I would encourage you to check out our YouTube channel, which has the other 2 recordings as well. But Krueger is a longtime friend and also an international educator and speaker, peak performance trainer, best-selling author, just to name a few things. I'll let Kurt share a little bit more about his background. And tonight will be just a little bit different than we've done in the past. We will be having a little bit of an interview with Kurt and learn more about his organization, which is Success Systems International, and some specifics tonight that we had touched upon in the last webinar with regards to affirmations as yet another practice that you can use to improve the quality of your life. So beginning this evening, I wanted to share with you just a little bit about what the scope is of Success Systems International, which is a whole system in place that is really about not just us individually, but a whole system of the collective whole. And so we'll be touching a little bit about that, because oftentimes in today's world, we're hearing about well-being, and that's absolutely essential and number one. But we also have then this ripple effect that goes out, and it goes out into the collective. So energetically, whatever we're doing for ourselves, we're doing for everyone as well, and the whole planet. So we're going to touch a little bit about that tonight and talk a little bit more specifically about affirmations a little bit further down. But to start out with, in this time that we're living in, it's great because we have just so many tools accessible to us. And yet, how do you know which one to choose? There's so many. And often as we begin exploring, we find that there are not just, one way, but that it opens the door to integrate or further integrate body, mind, and soul. And rightly so, because we're multidimensional beings and we're having this experience of life. So as we begin to integrate more, we open ourselves up to more. But again, the question comes up, how do you know which one to choose? How do you know who to be listening to, or, in today's social media platform, who to follow, who to subscribe? Well, how do we get to all these places? And so tonight, to help and bring that a little bit more centered for each and every one of us, we hope that this will encourage you to find that fine-tuning listening that we do within and align ourselves. Kurt, I'd like to turn it over to you right now to share a little bit about yourself, and then maybe jump into just how is it that we find, what best suits us with whatever particular modality or technique that we're using.
To begin really quickly, I'm an identical twin. I was raised in the little town of San Fernando, which is north of Los Angeles, California. And I've been a competitor all my life because inside the womb, I was trying to compete for space too, and we grew up playing sports and having a good time in those days. The big times were the 60s. And one of the things that happened later on is that I had not been training in over 11 years. My twin brother convinces me to enter the International Senior Olympics. I entered 4 races. I won 4 gold medals. I was teaching at Crenshaw High School. It's a ghetto school in Los Angeles. Some of the students in my government class found out about it, and they were track athletes, and one of them was a 6'6" high jumper. He could jump 6'6". And within 3 months of my teaching him two things, just two, he jumped 7'1". That's a tremendous amount of space. Then a man was an 880 man, and he ended up going from a 202 880 to a 152, 10 full seconds. I trained Anita Sood in India at their National Institute of Sports. She set 8 national records.
Wow.
And so on. I worked with the Aussie rules football team in WA called the Claremont Footy Club. And they ended up going to the grand final. And that's like the Super Bowl in Australia for Aussie rules football.
Yeah.
So the practices, which are all basically a systems approach, it's a body, mind, spirit, and emotions. And the most important is the spirit. When you tap into that spirit, there's pretty much nothing you cannot do. And I can give you all kinds of examples of that. From the only picture in Winning Ways for Living, can't see if that, there we go. Winning Ways for Living is a picture of a man lifting over 7,000 pounds. He was over 60 years old. He did it 3 out of 5 times after midnight. And he had ended up doing other feats of extremes. It just shows us a little thing that when we tap into that spirit, you can do just about anything. And we give all kinds of practices. This is loaded with practices that are going to make it so that you will find maybe the one here and another one there, and you think that's just right for me. So you use those. And when you use those and you get those benefits, then you think, hey, if those work, let me try another one. And you try another one. And then you try another one, because you keep on stepping up. Just like the film I sent you, that video on the domino effect. It shows a man taking a minuscule little domino with tweezers. And he puts it down very delicately to stand it up on it because it's so thin. And he knocks it down and it goes boom, 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 boom. Because the last one is over 100 pounds and it's almost 4 feet tall or 5 feet tall or whatever it is. And if he would have done it with 27 similarly incremented dominoes, the last one would have been the Empire State Building.
Wow.
So little improvements, like when we improve our mental clarity, when we de-stress in what some people think is stressful days, then we get to be better, and then pretty soon we take a quantum leap.
Yeah.
This is the key to life. We are going to transform this planet at the time when we come out of this so-called chaos. It is chaos in so many ways, but chaos always leads to harmony when people come together. They work together, just like healthy cells in the human body teach us. If there's another cell near them that's ill or weak, they strengthen it. They help it, just like you help your neighbors. If they need some food, you give them food. That was something called the Golden Rule. Mm-hmm. This simple cooperation, generating more and more, is going to transform humanity into a totally new society. There's something called donut economics. Success Systems International is working with the creators of donut economics, of B corporations. Most people don't know about B corporations. We teach the people about that. We get the experts in to transform companies into B corporations. We do all the things that will make everywhere where we live thriving. And why shouldn't we all thrive? From people in this continent or that continent, you notice that we have an effect from a huge ocean away, the biggest ocean. We're affected by what happened there, and it affected the whole world. We're all interconnected. The internet allows us to have a internet. And when we go inside and connect up our inside connections, nutritionally, thinking wise, and so on, watch out. So,
Right.
yeah, that's
Yes.
a little bit of a blurb, huh?
I love that. And, I think the question that comes up a lot is with regards to everyone is on, we are in a period of time, whether it's our evolution in humanity or however one perceives it, but everyone individually is having this experience of life and where they're at in their consciousness. And, one might say, well, if someone is in the consciousness that they're in and they're evolving just at the pace they're evolving, because that is their pace. And someone else might perceive that, well, there's aspects to the way that person lives their life that's unconscious. Simple example, the way somebody might perceive organics or not organics, or someone might perceive the way our economy works, or a social order and the way that works. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a political conversation tonight necessarily, but people have all these different ideas, right? And everybody thinks that idea they're talking about is the best, or perhaps it's the one that is just the consciousness, right, of wherever this individual or this group of people or whatever it is. And you're right, we are interconnected. We're not separate. It's all part of this whole. So when we talk about that and we talk about how this transformation is going to happen in humanity, how are you perceiving that? How is Success System International helping to, work with the idea that everything is evolving, and yet there's a lot of pieces to all of this. Not everybody is working in the same consciousness. Not everybody has the same type of frequency in the way they're perceiving all these different elements that you're talking about.
When we approach things from our heart, we get to be able to feel the people we're speaking with, and we can actually, because we're approaching the person from our heart, we can actually begin to hear with very, very, very soft ears. The soft ears allow us to feel that heart and the meaning behind it. Everybody in the entire world wants peace, happiness, and simple things for their family. Simple things. There's not a single person I've met in the villages in India, in the hinterlands in Africa, wherever I've been, everybody wants the same thing. When we approach the person as yourself, because if we are all interconnected, according to physics and according to different sciences, they basically are proving this now, that we make everything else better. I'll give you an example of the good vibrations idea of the 1960s. In the late 60s and early 70s, a guy named Maharishi Mahesh Yogi started teaching meditation, and the Beatles got into it, and this group and that group, and people, it started to flourish. And then they started testing the effects of meditation. They took people down to hot spots in El Salvador when it was blowing up and having their civil war and all that kind of stuff. Within 3 days of their arrival, there were sort of ceasefires or peace talks, or there was a total change. They stayed like a month. Within 3 days of their leaving, things changed again. They didn't go out in March. I wish all the marchers around our country and around the world would have sat down and meditated and prayed and thought, what is the best way to be able to get things changed, which is to elect better people, which is to be able to pick up after yourself, which is to clean your own. Like Goethe said, if you want the world clean, sweep your doorstep. Take care of your own house. When you take care of your house, you're looking on the bright side of life. You're looking at it more positively. Who feels better? Immediately, you do. But guess what? You're not all isolated except these days, but you get out and people see you and experience you, and your vibrations make them either smile as you come in the room or sort of turn away. It depends on who is coming in the room. And those vibrations can be felt consciously for some people and unconsciously for others, but everybody feels them. I'm really shocked at one thing that I was just reminded of today in a Humanity Rising talk. I used to travel the West with my family. We used to drive to all kinds of different places, Lake Tahoe, Grand Canyon, etc. We used to have to stop every once in a while and clean the windshields because they were so full of bugs. You can drive down the street all day now and you don't have to clean your windshield of bugs. Mm-hmm. Same thing with, you're in the Midwest. The Midwest, flocks of birds at a certain time of year would go either south or north with hundreds of birds. And how many? Maybe hundreds of flocks a day. The skies were filled with all these birds. Here in Southern California, we maybe see 10 to at the most 20 in a flock. When insects die, the things that feed on insects die. That includes all kinds of other things that you can't imagine. And when they die, what happens to the animals above them? Slowly but surely. It's like when they put back in the wolf into Yellowstone, the whole environment improved because it was a natural predator keeping everything in balance. If they ate too many deer or elk or whatever they were eating, then things denigrated, but they never ever did that. It was all in balance. It created its own natural balance. When we take things out of balance, like we've done with destroying the rainforests, you don't have to worry about global warming if you are concerned with a living planet. If the planet isn't living, where are we going to live? Mm-hmm. We can only thrive when others thrive. Teamwork is a big thing in sports. Teamwork is a big thing in business. When I work for big corporations, I say, I want your CEO, and I want your secretary, and I want your lineman, the person on the assembly line or whatever, all the way up and down. Somebody in those areas of that corporation need to be in that room. Mm-hmm. If they're not peak performing, your whole corporation cannot get to be better. And when they're not treated correctly, how could they feel valuable? And so on and so forth. We deal with ethics. We deal with anything that makes life thrive.
I agree. I think that there's so much there that, is about how, just the whole domino effect kind of thing that you were talking about, or ripples or whatever other analogies we want to, perceive in images. But I do think that it does take a consciousness for an individual to recognize that we're all part of one another. So I like to put that to the test, and I would challenge anyone to do that. And that is that for many people, they can do a certain amount of reflection and being able to feel a connection with something outside of themselves, another person. Usually that comes within people that are close to them, family, closer relationships. And then you start to go out into that ripple effect out there in the world a little bit, and you encounter maybe outside people, right? And you might find that too. I live in a very urban city, Chicago, and You encounter all kinds of people, very diverse, far from perhaps a lifestyle that one is accustomed to or whatever. Now, I know for myself over the course of my experiences in life and also having lived in many different locations in the United States, you know, you can feel all those different energies, just like you said, you can feel from your heart and things like that. But I can tell you right now that a lot of people find it difficult to identify with things that they feel are not a correct way of living or something that is, you know, negative compared to what they think they are, you know. So, for instance, something as simple as like you might have someone, you know, on Michigan Avenue that's walking here in Chicago that might have a lot of wealth. And you may have someone else who is, you know, homeless. And maybe, you know, the person with a lot of wealth has very fine clothes and the person that's homeless is in dirty rags. To bridge that consciousness that they're really still connected together, right? And so how do we, so that's a question, you know, how do we see ourselves developing? And this is for the broader audience, because, you know, you have your practices, I have my practices, a lot of people have practices, but how do we transmit those kinds of ideas about how do we make that connection? Or let's say somebody is sitting here and, you know, the marchers, there were a lot of people that were peacefully marching and accordingly acting to what their consciousness believed that they were there to do for the good of all. And then you had other people that were vandalizing and destructive and doing other things as offshoots of all of that. How do people make those connections? You know, we just had a shooting that was recently done not too long ago in the broad daylight right by Michigan Avenue, which, you know, up until now was like, that's unheard of, you know, and it's like, boom, it's right there, right? And how do people see that? You know, how do people connect with what is perceived as despicable or as awful or horrible? You see what I'm saying? How do we get past and move into that union of one another?
Oh, I've read a book. The first book I've ever listened to, within 1 week, I listened to it twice. I've never ever done that. This book is called The Four Sacred Gifts. It's by Anita Sanchez. She's an indigenous, she's part Azteca, and she's a Mexicana. She teaches corporations around the world.
Yeah.
She's on the board of Pachamama Alliance. She's very outstanding. The very first of the four sacred gifts is to forgive the unforgivable.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you real quickly, if we have time for a short story.
Sure.
There's a series on YouTube. It's a 3-part, 90-minute each series called Human. Very simple.
Yes.
Human. It's by a French producer.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding first 2 scenes.
Yeah.
The second scene shows a man looking you straight in the eye, and he's telling you how he learned love.
Yes, but I've seen it. Yes. Beautiful.
Then, that was from his father. Then he tells you how he learned love from the most unexpected source you could ever imagine. It's like I hand out learning sheets when I go to places, and this one learning sheet is about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Desmond Tutu started in South Africa. My wife is from South Africa, worked anti-apartheid efforts and so on. It's an amazing thing when you can forgive the unforgivable. She went a step beyond because she was challenged by an elder. She herself is an elder now, of course. But she was challenged to not only look at it, but bless her, the person who she had the most unforgivable thing to bless him. Not just forgive him, but bless him for creating life, for giving her an experience that allowed her to be able to do what she's doing now. She would never have ever had so much of what happened throughout her life had she not had that. But she grew from it. She decided to make something from it. It's like this COVID. We can treat this as we're in penitentiary, or we can treat it like we're the little chrysalis in the butterfly. The caterpillar got into this chrysalis. He's all dookie, but we have intentional cells in it's not intentional cells. I keep on saying that instead of the correct one. Imaginal cells. We have imaginal cells, and we're the imaginal. We imagine what life could be like, how it can be better. And then we get enough people communicating and get stronger together because we're working together that pretty soon we can break through that thing and we start flying. And that's what it'll be like when we get out of this simple experience of hibernation.
Yes, yes. Well, I thank you for that. I think that's all part of the consciousness, all part of how we're expanding out, at this very time and at this moment. And that enables you and I to have this conversation right now and to be bringing it and have other viewers seeing it along with so many other, I believe, teachings and messages and wisdom. And it's all a part of just remembering is what I believe, it's remembering back into who we really are. And that's, that's part of, I think, where we're going in some of this conversation tonight. So you've talked a little bit about some of the things you've taught and also how it's been effective for others. And you mentioned prior in the last webinar about affirmations. Afformations, again, I'll say, different than affirmations, which might be something that more people have heard, in the past decade or so. I always think of affirmations back, I think, in the 70s or early 80s or something, when Saturday Night Live used to have a skit where it was like a little, I don't know, it was Pete Smalley talking, and he would have these little affirmations. It was a man that would look into the mirror and he would say, I love you. I think you're this. That, he would say all these I kind of affirmations. And it was a little, a spin-off on people getting involved with affirmations. But tell us a little bit about affirmations and what makes that different and how you use it. And maybe you can walk us through a little bit of an exercise with that as well.
We'll do that. The beautiful thing about affirmations is that it gets your mind thinking positively. And that's so important because your blood sugar goes up when you think positively and so on. The only thing about it is, what is your mind thinking? You're saying, I am happy, healthy, and holy. Well, you're not happy right now. That's why you're saying the damn thing. Excuse me for French. Or this, that, or the other thing that you're really not, but you want. So your mind is fighting what you're trying to put in. And it takes time to get that groove of I am happy, healthy, and holy, or I am strong, I'm confident, I'm, all these good things. I created for the 1988 Olympics, because I was training people for the Olympics, I created a sound phasing for brain synchronization tape. This was way before anybody was using it. And you had to have an ear set on, and you had to listen to it because it balanced your right and left hemispheres of your neocortex. So it's all opened up and the communication's happening in there. And so, on one side of the tape, it was a tape in those days, you would hear the affirmations audibly. On the second side, it would go subliminal. So you don't hear it consciously, but it's going into your brain. Mm-hmm. And when you hear it enough, it's like there's something that were called audio records in the old days, and there were grooves, and it was like developing a groove. Now, when you had a negative thing, you had to go deeper and deeper and deeper to get it deeper beyond the old ideas. So it's the one that all the water fell into, where all the, the things came from. Affirmations ask the question, why am I so happy, healthy, or holy? Why am I so confident? Why am I so strong? Why am I the best speaker? Why am I always rated this in my company? or I'm even why am I advancing so fast? You ask that question. Now, everybody knows science and the idea that a vacuum can't have a vacuum if there's anything able to come into it. So pretty soon the vacuum is filled. And what happens? You are actually manifesting those things, because the idea of how you are confident, you see the times in your day that you are confident. Your mind is sort of pulling all those things together because it's trying to connect up the matrix. It's trying to connect up, why am I? And you're contemplating this basically, and pretty soon more and more of those thoughts come together as you think, yes, I am more confident. I'm confident here, I'm confident there. Oh, I can be confident in more places. And you start to act that way more places. And it's more and more and more easy to do. And this is what we get to do with affirmations. Noah St. John wrote the book. He's a great soul. He's got a beautiful, sweet wife, just like your husband has a sweet wife and so on. He's a sweet guy too. Stevie's good. Anyway, enough about that. If you'd like to practice it, if you have an affirmation, you can maybe take a note and just write down 3 affirmations. Then it's like I mentioned, it could be I'm happy, or it could be that I am successful. Different things, especially the more detailed as possible in that. And if you add an emotion to it, why do I enjoy being so confident? That brings emotion, and emotion brings motion. So it brings it to be able to the forefront and allows it to have more juice. So add that to, now you change it. You've got your affirmation down. You write down it as a question, as if it is now. It's always positive in the present tense. Now you can say, why am I so happy? Why am I so confident? Why am I so, etc.? I ask people to do something way beyond that, because we includes me. But who else is included? The matrix, everybody else, all my brothers and sisters, as the Native Americans say, all my relations. All my relations. I'm related to the plants and animals. Why? Because they make me. I may eat them, or I may not be eating the animals if you don't eat animals. You eat, and therefore you are. You think, and therefore you are. That's, of course, some crazy philosopher from France, but that's another story. So I ask people to do inclusive affirmations. If anybody wants it, they can communicate with me on successsystemsinternational@gmail.com. You write me asking for inclusive affirmations. You can ask me for just about anything, because I am here to serve. I'm what they call in India a karma yogi. I'm seeking oneness. I'm not seeking it so much anymore because I feel so much more oneness. When you give, you already have your heart opened up. Your heart opens up more, just like your hands open up more. As you open up more, you can receive more. Catholic priests used to bless people like this, in nomine Patri, Filii, Spiritus Sancti. That meant in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And this is a mudra in India.
Yeah.
It accepts energy from the universe, and it recycles the energy throughout your body. And you sit in a triangular shape. Some people have read a book called The Secrets of the Great Pyramids. And there's great power in geometric forms. There are concentration practices like mandalas. That's also in the book. There's something called the Chart's Labyrinth. And that, when you walk it, actually, I can show it to you here. Oops.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's the Chart's Labyrinth. It's at the atrium of the Cathedral of Notre Dame's in Chartres. It's outside of Paris. When you walk it, you literally feel calmer. I was walking the same design at a cemetery that had this same exact design on a terracotta place in the cemetery area. I was walking it with a Catholic priest, and some kids from a gravesite came running over, and they started to enter it haphazardly. I said, "There's the entrance. Follow this path in and get into the center. Stay as long as you want. There's looks like petals in the middle. You can go to any one of those petals if you want to, or when you feel like it, retrace your steps back." When they got out of there doing that, they ran over to their families and brought their families back. Why? I had that painted at a middle school, a ghetto school in Los Angeles, Van Nuys Middle School. Every time kids walked it, they said that they felt more peaceful. We had them do agility drills. It's a great agility drill. Try running that sucker. You can do it as a trust walk. There's all kinds of interdisciplinary ways you can use the Chart's Labyrinth or any labyrinth.
Mhm.
That's a concentration practice. It was made by the mystics of 1201 is when Chartres was finished. Right in the Dark Ages, basically. Starting of the Middle Ages type of thing, just about. It's amazing.
That's wonderful. So you took us a little bit through that exercise. So I want to maybe bring that out a little bit more and have a little bit more clarity. So for instance, one of the affirmations I wrote was, "I am peaceful." So help me move through the next step of what that inclusive affirmation would look like then.
Okay. How would you make it inclusive?
How would I make it inclusive?
I'm an educator. I'm not going to indoctrinate.
So you're so
Inside there was a very famous dude, Socrates. He's no schlepper, you know.
absolutely. Okay, so turning it into the we. So I'm just trying to like walk a viewer through this, how we would turn this into the inclusive
Notice how you're doing
question.
Notice how you're doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah. So then it is the I am peaceful, and it would be turned into the question of why am I so peaceful? Why are we so peaceful?
Yes. Excellent. Now, did I ask you to add one more little thing that would get things in motion? Can you add an emotional word?
As far as emotion towards the statement or the question, why?
What would peaceful be? Why do you want to be so peaceful? What's the juice in it? What makes you want to be able to experience that?
So is it attached to the end of the question? So for instance, the juice to that would be this crystal clear state of being, this feeling of wholeness, oneness.
Okay. Now, with this idea of why do we enjoy feeling so peaceful, or you could even ask, what does our being so peaceful bring to the planet?
Okay,
If
so
we are so peaceful, or what's the experience you would have being peaceful?
So I'm inclined to want to make a statement out of that. I am peaceful, right? I am peaceful because I feel the connection of the wholeness within one. And to change that would be Why are we peaceful? And then you're saying to add that piece. So for the planet to be,
It's actually emotion. It's like, why do we really enjoy being so happy? So you're in putting that enjoyment, there's the emotion that you feel, and you are
I
also
see.
happy. So there's an added oomph to it. It's like your second stage of the rocket.
Why do we feel interconnected when we're peaceful? Why do we feel tranquil? Why do we feel tranquility
Yeah.
when we're peaceful, or when we have more peace?
Mm.
Why do we feel? So for me, the emotion is just about that whole the feeling of connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is why I'm asking you, because each person is going to put their own particular emotion into it. Because if
Perfect.
I tell you what my emotion is and why I choose this or whatever, it does you really no good. The key factor is, it's like the Zen masters always, had a koan. A koan, like everybody knows the one, what is the sound of one hand clapping?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody's going to say this, that, or the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not answering the question because they don't have that experience.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I hope that everybody puts that to use with the affirmations, because I think that's kind of like getting to the crux, to the root of something that, like you said, I think it allows more integration from the mind to the heart to the whole.
The we, the
Yes.
we. It's not just me, because there's the ego. It's the we.
Yeah.
And so that is the joining factor. This is why inclusion is so valuable. This is why teamwork is so valuable. This is why this cohesion is so important.
Yeah.
When we communicate, commune, we are in communion. And the communion is so key, because in this Catholicism thing, you take this little wafer and it's
Yeah.
quote supposed to be Jesus, and you're taking God into you. So you're uniting spirit with the body, and so you get to be more. I always felt great when I receive that. Why? Because I'm focused on that. It's a ritual that has great feeling to it. There's rituals all over the world. Fire rituals in India. There's the certain medicine that you take in the Amazon or in the hills in Mexico or wherever. And each culture has their own kind of rituals. In the Native American, you go on a vision quest, or you also could have a medicine circle or whatever. There's many different ways to approach spirit.
Right.
Mm.
I love that, because that brings us kind of to some of these concluding thoughts that I'd like to also be able to highlight, which is that idea of authorship, what we each bring to that experience. Because obviously, like you had mentioned, the communion. So my husband is Catholic, and he went through a lot of rituals, and perhaps early on as a child, he felt that connection, or more of maybe even what the innocence of that was, like what that connection or that communion was. And then as he got older, there were a lot of different things, within the or I don't even know if they call it a congregation, well, in the community there at the church, that seemed like it was, maybe people were having a lot of different types of experiences, not necessarily communing at that moment. And there were a lot of maybe discrepancies or contrasts in what was being seen. So not everybody was actually going into that practice with the same kind of feeling and in that same moment. I, as a Waldorf teacher, experienced it, in a community where, there may be people having, let's say, an experience of a spiral, an Advent garden, and like a labyrinth, walking into that, and it's very sacred and holy, and there's a feeling, I think, of reverence that came over a lot of the individuals. In fact, when I would do those in communities, oftentimes people who had never experienced it would have a deep sense of reverence and connection with spirit. And yet there were other times when I taught at other Waldorf schools where, you know, maybe different parts of the community didn't have that experience necessarily, you know, and they didn't, couldn't connect necessarily in that way. And I think that's true for pretty much anything, you know, that there's different levels of how people approach or enter into any ritual. I'm a person who loves rituals. Sounds like you probably practice a lot of rituals and love rituals too. And I know a lot of people who love rituals too, but not everybody is coming into it in that way. And so it brings me to that idea of like authorship, how we come into this. Just like when you were talking about the affirmations and the we-ness of it, it's that authorship. It's connecting into oneself. And, you know, nobody can teach that to you, just like you said, you know, it's like as an educator, you, I, others know we can't bring that to somebody. It's something that you own yourself. So what are your thoughts on that as far as just having that authorship?
Well, the key factor is that everybody has their intensities. That's why this book has so many different practices to do. I love the Pythagoras' practice, and he was a great philosopher and a great mathematician. That worked for his students that worked it. It works for anybody who works it, but it may not be your cup of tea. And so you may do a simple thing like walk in the labyrinth, or you may do a daily meditation that may be, or how many people have ever been taught how to concentrate?
Yeah.
You've been all told how to concentrate, to concentrate, but not how in school. Now, you've been shown how to concentrate in some films, like The Karate Kid Part 2. If you want to see it, there's a part of it where he has to break a whole bunch of bricks of ice. And his master, Mr. Miyagi, says, "Are you concentrated?" And so the boy, the Karate Kid, stops, puts his hands together. As he's breathing in, he reaches up. As he's breathing out, he comes down. As he's breathing in, he reaches forward. As he's breathing out, he comes back in. As he's breathing in, he's going up. He's gazing, but we who happen to be less trained, most likely would find this to be able to be better to do with the eyes closed. As you're reaching up, you breathe in. As you come down, you breathe out. As you reach forward, breathe in. As you come back, breathe out. You do that for a minute, and you will find your mind is concentrated. Why? It uses your slower breath. It uses the balanced movement to bring in harmony the right and left hemispheres of your neocortex. That opens up your learning centers. The breathing, because you're breathing deeply, the breathing brings oxygen to your body more so than you normally do. And you're breathing just the right amount because you're breathing in at the same rate as out and in. And so you won't hyperventilate. The one organ in your body that uses the most oxygen is your brain. Your heart is connected more to your brain. Your heart has neurons, brain cells in the heart. Check Dr. Bruce Lipton's work if you're interested.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on the forefront of that. He did stem cell research in the 80s. He's a maestro. He was out of Stanford University. He's going to actually be on a podcast that I'm going to be working with.
Oh, wonderful. I do know some of his work, and yeah, incredible. Yeah.
So
Right.
the key essence is practice, practice, practice. When you daily meditate, this is what I call the foundation practice for stress management. It like has that lake is so flat when you walk out of your building into your car to go to work. Then when you get to work, it may have some breezes at you and there's little ripples. And then when you catch yourself going a little bit more than a ripple, you can do a concentration practice, or you can do another practice, a mantra practice, or this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah.
Again, so many things are available to us. Instead of reading whole books on affirmations, or instead of reading whole books on afformations, you read this, you have a practice, you move with it, and then you add to it.
Lovely. Excellent. Thank you so much. And again, Kurt, if you would just share with everyone your website. I know you said you're doing some construction on it. You're on our community page listed on there. I know there's information on there too, and they can reach out to you, like you said, to get those PDFs for the inclusive affirmations and the Pythagoras as well.
Yes.
And I know that we had talked about it as we build with our website, PureEsperanza. We are developing a library and a way to catalog information so that we can make all these kinds of resources available to more individuals as well. But if you could share with them your website and where to get your book, Winning Ways for Living, as we tie up these 3 amazing webinars that I think are going to be useful on a lot of levels for people to be able to work with in many different ways that works perfectly customized for them.
Yeah, because we'll see which one attracts you the most and you use it. And again, keep on using and using and boom. Winning Ways for Living is the book. You can get it anywhere. The Success Systems International, that is plural, Success Systems International.net. My email address, if you'd like to email me directly, is successsystemsinternational@gmail.com. And just boom, boom, shambo, and you've got it. One thing I'd like to make sure that we leave with is right now, hold your hand up like this. And I want you to connect up with my hand in a way through the ethers. Just feel the love emanating from the human being to the human being. You may be this may be taped. You may not be seeing it right now, but it doesn't matter. Because when we connect like this, like as if we really touch each other's heart, and we breathe so sweetly because we feel that heart, we start to resonate together. That resonating brings harmony to life. And this is how we overcome obstacles. Because really speaking, there's no obstacle that love cannot conquer. And it doesn't conquer, that's the wrong word. Love cannot cause to thrive. Know that I love you, and know that you are loved, and know that you are love. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lovely, lovely way to close this evening, Kurt, and to wrap up these 3 parts to Winning Ways for Living. Again, In the Art of Living series will continue. We have some beautiful events coming up. If you haven't looked at our website yet, PureEsperanza.org is where you can see more events that are coming up. You can see the blog page, you can see the community, and all these wonderful individuals and organizations that are just shining bright light out into the world in so many ways for you to connect with, for you to find more resources. Kurt Krueger is on that community page. You can also see his links, some of which he's mentioned here, there as well. And we wish you all the greatness that you are, all the fullness of the presence you are, I am. And we thank you again for joining us here, and blessings to you all in this beautiful journey that we're all together on. Blessings.
Blessings. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Kurt.
My pleasure.
Have a beautiful day. And again, thank you so much for being here with us throughout this summer and all the connections we continue to make. Thank
Yeah,
you.
definitely. Give my love to Steve too. I miss him.
Yes. Blessings to Terry too. Take good care.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.